It's been said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. But I propose there should be a new definition of insanity, and it's this. It's one that's even more destructive and more frustrating. Here it is. It's doing less of something, but expecting the same results as if I had done all of something. We'll get into that and more today and show you how you can get the best results from the time that you invest in your healing. Here we go. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Reboot Recovery Show. I'm Evan Owens, your host. I'm the executive director here at Reboot Recovery, co-founder with my wife, Dr. Jenny Owens. I'm so grateful to have you here. Our mission on this show is to really help you overcome trauma and embrace a brighter future. And to do that, I realized I needed to pull in some amazing co-hosts. And so joining me again is Dr. Brooke Keels, as well as author Adam Davis. Thank you to you both for being here today. And I'm excited about this topic. I think it's going to be something that hopefully, as we were preparing for the show, this is not something I had really thought about much, but we live in an interesting time, a time when maybe we've grown a little accustomed to things being quicker. Maybe we're not as thorough as maybe we once were. I don't know where the definition of insanity originally came from, this idea. It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the different results. But as I said in the original bumper for this, I said that I think there's maybe a new definition of insanity, which is doing less of something or doing something halfway and expecting the same results. You know, we expect, this is the way I put everything in food analogies. Adam, you know that with me. I love to eat. I love cake like a fat kid loves cake. And you know, what I think I expect is I expect crock pot flavor in microwave time. Right? I expect crock pot flavor in microwave time. And I think everybody listening probably knows what I'm talking about. We all want amazing results, but with limited activity and exposure. You know? I mean, now I know, Adam, you've been on this amazing journey for your health, right? You've been working out like multiple days a week, all this kind of stuff, and you're starting to see results, right? But for me, if I only go once a month, I'm probably not going to see the same results. But guess what? When I look at a picture of your weight loss, you know what I want? I'm like, I want those results. Now, I don't want to put in the effort, but I definitely want the same results. And we've seen this, you know, why do 7-minute abs when I can do 6-minute abs? You guys remember that old movie? What's that? What is that movie? It's like, no, it's 6-minute abs. And he's like, yeah, but why wouldn't I just come up with 5-minute abs? He's like, no, you don't get it. It's 6-minute abs. What movie was that? Was that I think something about Mary, maybe? Is that right?
Yes, I think that's it. Yeah.
Was that it? Yeah. Right. But I fear that this mindset is actually spilling over a little bit into mental health, and it's spilling into discipleship, right? And that's what I really want to talk to you. I see people who will come to a reboot group, only attend a couple of weeks. They get a little bit of healing and assume that they're ready to go. They assume that they've completed enough transformation that now they're going to be good on their own. And Brooke, I'm guessing that you've seen some of this same thing, that they assume that they're going to get the same benefit as someone who completed the whole thing, putting in the time, attending the weekly courses, doing the homework, building the community, as somebody who just, you know, shows up for a few or misses every other week or whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think it's just as insane to do something halfway and expect the same results as it is doing the same thing over and over again. You know, so Adam, I mean, you see this a lot with the discipleship work and the books that you do. I mean, tell us, how is that playing out, and why are we so prone to look for that quick fix?
Shift. Flat out, it's a generational shift. You have a generation that was, you know, before us that would go work 25, 30 years or more in one occupation, right? And so how does that tie into wanting a quick fix? How does it tie into, okay, I want the same thing. Okay, well, let's look at it like this. You see teenagers that want right now the things that their parents have worked an entire lifetime for. You see people come in and say, oh my goodness, Adam overcame this, or Evan overcame this, or Brooke dealt with this and overcame this. I want whatever they did. So give me what you went through in 15 years or 20 years or whatever, and give it to me in a pill form, and I can apply it right now and not have to go through the same pain. So I think you have to look at the generational shift that's occurred.
That's really good. Yeah. Yeah. Brooke, how about you? I mean, you have a longer intervention, but you also have a shorter kind of keys to freedom intervention that you do. I don't know if you'd call it an intervention or not, but
Yeah.
a program. Tell me how you're seeing this.
Yeah. Well, number one, I 100% agree with Adam. Like, if we look at just big picture generationally, what our expectations are. But yeah, I mean, so even at Mercy, when you have a 6 to 9 month program, we have several young women, like, we're not immediate placement. So it may take them 3 months to get through the application process. And then they get to Mercy, and then they're there 30 days and they start feeling better. And how many times we hear, well, I think I've got what I need now. Right. And they leave. And our percentage of people who leave and then reapply is
Wow.
at 85%. Okay.
Wow.
So we just know what it is, but what we teach in that, and we'll see the same thing in Keys to Freedom, and even when we do our Empower teachings, which are like to equip ministers and, lay people how to help the hurting, right? They get really on board and really excited, and they'll start a few things, and then it doesn't land. But what we teach is this: there is a difference between wanting to be free and being ready to be free. Wanting it is, I want to feel better now. Being ready is understanding that you have to partner with that thing and actually learn how to do it and learn how to be healthy. You mentioned being in the gym, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've got to throw weights every day to get, bowed up. I want to be bowed up, but I'm not, because I'm not doing the thing that would allow that to happen, and so
Right.
that's just kind of what we see pretty consistently. And that's what we teach in the home and in Keys to Freedom and at Empower, because I think it's such an important thing. I just love that we're talking about this, honestly. So
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. It's something that I say in some of the speeches that I give. I talk about that a person who I'm going to pour into has to be both ready and willing. And I talk about how readiness relates to time and availability. Willingness relates to attitude. And I think so often I'm ready, but I'm not willing. I'm ready right now to get in shape, but I'm not really willing. My attitude isn't ready. There's other times when I have a great attitude, but it is not the right season of life for me to dive into that specific project at that time, And I think that's something that readiness and willingness and the marriage of those two things that you just talked about is so important. And I think that one of the things that I worry about in our space of trauma healing, and I say this with love and with grace to all of my friends. I have some amazing friends who lead organizations that do some of the most incredible short-term intensive interventions, whether it's a 5-day retreat, a 3-day weekend, a trip that they go on, something like that. I love these organizations, and I'm not criticizing them. But one of the fears that I have is that mountaintop moments sometimes set people up for deep valleys. It can be very difficult when I go away from reality. I leave my kids, I leave my stress of my life, and I go to some place and I'm able to solely focus in on my healing and everything. It's not particularly challenging to make me have some euphoria of breakthrough. But how does that breakthrough continue when I go back to real life, where I've got the kids screaming in the backseat, I've got my wife upset that I missed my turn, I'm late to where I need to be going, right? And all this stress is hitting me. Then all of a sudden, do I feel like, man, I sure am glad I'm still on that mountaintop. I still feel great, right? And there's necessity for those breakthrough experiences. In my life, they've been some key breakthrough moments. So again, if you've been to a retreat and you're listening, grace on that. I love that you did that. Please continue doing that. But I worry sometimes a little bit, are we creating a mountain valley mindset? A mountain valley mindset. One of the things that Paul talks about is he says, I've learned to be content in all things, right? Anybody know the rest of that? He talks about in this and in that, when I have plenty, when I have want, when I'm in jail and when I'm free, when I'm this and when I'm, he's learned the secret to be content. You see, he broke this mountain valley mindset where he was either really high or really low. I'm going to ask you guys, have you seen a lot of the people that you work with who exist in this extremes? They're either really high and life is amazing and they're doing great, or life is terrible and they're falling apart. Is that something you guys have experienced, or am I the only one? And if I'm the only one, then that's okay. Is that something that you've seen, Brooke, in the work that you do with Mercy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and probably in my own life too. I remember at one point I was in church and the Lord was just like, you've got to quit riding these waves of how you feel about stuff, because it really just doesn't matter. And separating out the emotions and feelings of things versus what is the truth. And we see that too, even at Mercy, when someone's with us 8 to 9 months, right? After 30 days, we start planning what's going to happen after Mercy. Right. But the reality of you've been at, I mean, Mercy is not this, but this idea of, like you're talking about, these intensive, of like this moment of rest, right? This where you've just met with the Lord and you get filled up for a moment, but it's literally for that moment. We're not supposed to go get, and it doesn't sustain us through everything, but we see it in this understanding too of just because you went and had a moment and changed and grew doesn't mean the rest of the world did. You still have to go back and function in that world as a healthy person. And so, you can teach people that all day long, but until they get out into it, and that's why we have kind of our transitional care part to really help them process that. But living it out, even for as long as our program is a whole different level of intentionality. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people, like I said, you're like, okay, I feel good. If I feel good, then everything's fine. And if it is based on emotions, which are so fleeting and so based on something very, that's not stability, so.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. And it's tough momentum requires stability, doesn't it? Which is interesting. Adam, do you have anything to add to that?
One of the people that was riding those extreme highs and extreme lows, and it was tied to really, I guess you could say, unstable emotions. But in the same way, we talk about wellness and health and taking care of ourselves or dealing with different habits or whatever the case is. I had to get to the point that I was willing and ready, and like no matter what it takes, I'm going to accomplish this goal. And what sort of turned that on was a shift in perspective. And I think too often we are so hungry for that high that we get that high on emotion at whatever cost. And whether it's healthy or not, I like to look at it like this. You talk about food analogies. 14 bags of Skittles, a dozen Snickers bars, loading up at various fast food restaurants. Man, that sounds amazing in the moment when you're like super, super, super hungry. But after you're done, it makes you feel like garbage. And if you do that for long enough, if you do that consistently long enough over a period of time, you are going to show the results of what you're putting in your body. And so stop chasing the highs by finding that place in intentionality based on a certain goal that you want to accomplish, and do the things every single day that you need to do, being present where you are, not worrying. We talk about feelings and emotions and how we ride the waves, okay? And I talk about this from a personal perspective because, baby, I was there. I was all up in my feelings, right? And then I learned that the heart is deceptive. And the Bible talks about the heart. But what is the heart? The heart, my physical heart doesn't contain anything except blood and vessels, and it does the work. So where is the heart? I think Brooke could probably attest to this. The feelings of the heart the scripture talks about is somewhere in an unconscious or subconscious mind. It's what we don't function with on a regular basis that we're aware of. So when we wake those things up and we say, I am not going to die young. I am not going to keep going down this path. I'm going to do what's necessary. So anyway, I get on the rabbit trail, you get fired up, you hit a little point. So you hit a pain point for me. So
yeah. No, yeah. No, I think it's good. And this is not the topic for the conversation, but I think it's important for us to remember that emotions were given to us by God, but then they're part of our body, which means that they're part of our fallen being. So I think it's important for us to remember that our emotions, while yes, they are good, they are also they are subject to the fallenness and brokenness of the world, because they are part of who we are.
That's
really
good.
Therefore, within our emotions.
Yeah, they're meant to be examined. Yeah, that's right. They're not meant to drive. They're meant to be assessed.
Yeah, that's what I always. That's right. I always say they're a gauge, not a guide.
That's
Yep,
right.
they're a gauge, not a guide.
Yeah.
And so, as I think about this, this idea of contentment, this idea, I think it's Philippians 4 where Paul talks about that he's learned to be content, whatever the circumstances, he's plenty in want and all this. And I think about that a little bit. And I think about this mountaintop valley mindset and how what happens is when we react off of the highs and the lows, we end up missing out on contentment, right? Either we chase the high or we become addicted to the redemption of the low, right? And I think that we're going to talk about this in the next podcast, but I think that we as a culture have, especially in Christian culture, have actually grown to believe some lies that we're all broken and we're meant to constantly live in this state of brokenness. If you listen to Christian radio, we're going to talk about that next week because I don't think that's really the message of the gospel. I think the message of the gospel is content in all things, that Christ is sufficient, right? That his grace is sufficient. But when I think about this, I also think that outside of the faith movement and outside of this chasing redemption, chasing this mountaintop and valley mindset, I think there's another thing that's happened, which is the rapid growth of the wellness industry. We have a multi-billion, dollar wellness business. And wellness now is classified very broadly, everything from books to tech wearables to supplements to, you name it, including all of us would technically be probably within the healing or wellness industry, I guess, if we were for-profit entities. And I read some interesting studies recently that talked about the harm that's being caused by wellness. And it said this, it said, when did self-care become so much work? And I started thinking about this, that a lot of times we take our driver culture and we say, okay, we're going to be excellent at this thing. And then we read a book on how to do rest better or how to do self-care better or how to take care of us. And then what we do is we turn that into a series of tasks that creates more work for us. So suddenly the thing meant to give us space and rest becomes a new thing that requires more work, which creates guilt and shame and regret when we don't live up to it. And within that, I even read some data that talked about people who have tech wearables are struggling at much disproportionately higher rates with things like depression and anxiety because they constantly feel there's this reminder, constantly reminding them that they're not living up. They're not getting their steps in. They're not at the BMI they should be. They're not at the whatever. And it showed that. And I thought that was really interesting. I'm interested to hear what our listeners think of this as well. But what are your guys' thoughts on sort of this wellness industry's influence on this idea that it really fights against contentment because they're battling, right? They're marketing to make you feel discontent enough that you buy their product, right? I mean, that's really the goal of their marketing team. We have to help people see someplace where they're discontent and then they will buy the product. What do you guys think about that?
I'll be quick, Adam, and then you go. That's okay. As somebody who, and again, I'll take this from a personal level and then back to what we do at Mercy, because, I've spent my whole life trying to make sure I'm healthy. And I think that the unhealthy thing about using this tech is when it's the same thing, it becomes this drive, this idea that all I have to do is buy this or read this book or listen to this podcast. And then I get kind of pumped up for a minute and look how great I got my steps in today. And then a week and a half later, I did it one day, or whatever kind of, it's this idea that something will make us partner with health or will, motivate us outside of what we need to do within our own selves. We want an external motivation versus, this intrinsic internal motivation. And we see it too. So one of the biggest things at Mercy is obviously the holistic piece. So we have nutritionists and we teach people how to eat healthy and do fitness in a great way. And we have a lot of young women that have eating disorders or disordered eating. And so we're really working with reshaping what that is, and you have to the ideas and the beliefs that we have about our physical body or being or health, all that. And it's so interesting because we will have these young women just really rail against whatever this is. Either that's too much or I need more. And just kind of what our relationship with these things. And they have such a hard time with even just teaching what healthy meals are as if they've never even heard this before. And I don't even know, we're not even really getting into food stuff really, but I know we've kind of touched on that. I don't know if any of us know what we're really supposed to be eating or what things really are supposed to be. And I think it gets really confusing, but then they'll shift into fine, you just tell me. instead of, no, you have to make the food.
Mm-hmm.
You have to choose what's the correct portion. Like, what does that look like? You know, you've got to partner with understanding what is good and healthy for your body, but they'll turn our nutrition and fitness people into, you just tell me what to do and then I'll do it. Right. You're not your personal trainer. We need you to take ownership. So I don't know if that translates at all, but I just think that that's what we look for, is something to tell us what to do and think that it's going to set us free versus what am I really going to do for it? You know?
Yeah, I think if a wellness company provides a product, a service, a teaching that can help you become more educated about your own body or the things that you're dealing with as regards to your mental health, I think if they provide good good education about those things, or if they provide something that will help you become more consistent, not obsessive, but consistent in doing the things every day that can help you achieve the goals. Not a magic pill, not a magic drink, not a magic formula, but something that will help you become more consistent. And I think that even if those things have what, a placebo effect, if it can just shift your mindset to where, okay, I'm going to keep doing these things, and the results really have nothing to do with what they've given you, provided you with, it's because that thing drove you to become more disciplined and committed in doing the things you needed to do. So I think that it plays a role. I think where we get into an issue is when we see a specific wellness company's product or service or whatever as the one all be all, instead of what can I take away and learn from what they have, and how can I apply that, and is it relevant? And if it's not, then keep on rolling and keep on trucking and pass it by. So I think that they have a role in it. I think it's reading through the lines, but again, they're hitting people that are driving 100 miles an hour in life, right? We're not slowing down to really study these things. So it's being mindful, aware of what you're looking at, what's being marketed to you, and is this really something good? So educate yourself before you buy into whatever they're offering you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's this idea. Dave Ramsey talks about this in one of his books, focused intensity
Mm-hmm.
over time.
Mm-hmm.
Focused intensity over time, and intentionality really plays a role in that, right? And I think for me, I've had to learn that every marketing message that's out there to some degree is driven to make me
That's right.
dissatisfied with my current situation. So I will buy their product. And I think realizing that I don't need to buy that message. Sometimes I need to stop and say, like, am I really dissatisfied, or do I think I'm dissatisfied because of what I'm being told? Right? Is what I'm doing now working, and I need to see it through to completion, or do I need to do 2 weeks of this, 2 weeks of that, 2 weeks of that, and hop from trend to trend to trend and expect the same results? And I think that's what I see so many times with
Yeah.
people that they'll do a little reboot, they'll do a little of this retreat, they'll do a little of this book, they'll do a little one-on-one counseling, they'll do a little bit of that. And yes, sometimes they might find that perfect blend of things, but usually it's going to happen over time. It's not going to be hopping from things. It's not going to be as much hopping from thing to thing as it is adding something to the mix, right? And there's a difference there, I believe, between those two things, and it's something that I've
That's
dealt
good.
with a lot in the work that I've done. And if you're listening and you find yourself exhausted by the process of trying to heal, well, then maybe narrow the number of things you're trying and focus in on what you think is your best bet, and maybe stick with that a little bit longer, run that race a little bit more, and give it some time to get sticky. If you're in a valley right now because you've recently had a mountaintop, maybe look at that verse of contentment and say, like, okay, what am I actually dissatisfied other than just my physical wellness? What's going on mentally, emotionally? How do I feel about this? How can I let my emotions be a gauge, not a guide? How do I analyze, or what did you say? Our emotions, used a different word, not analyze, but they need
Just
to be
evaluate, or assess.
Yeah. Examine. Yeah, that's the word.
Examine.
Right. I got this, and we don't have too much more time. We don't have too much more time, but I did get one question I wanted to address. This guy named Derek, I believe is how you say his name, sent this to me actually through social media, and this came in actually quite a long time ago, and I didn't address it actually in the first season. But it said this. It says, I've been trying Reboot for 5 weeks now, and I don't want to quit, but I'm not seeing any changes. So I must admit that I'm a little discouraged. But I guess I'll stick with it for now. On a different thread, my friend said I should try this drug called ayahuasca that people take down in South America. I looked it up online. It seems pretty experimental. Do you have any experience with it? Now, I don't know a ton about ayahuasca. I did some research prior to this. I've actually known a couple of veterans who have tried it within that space. Um, and I do know that traditionally it's known to have some pretty severe side effects for some people who do try it. I also know enough to know that it is typically administered, and Brooke, you might know more than I, but to my understanding, it's usually administered by gurus or witch doctors or something along those lines,
Mm-hmm.
and stems from some religious history actually as well, some Native American or some South American history, which I'm guessing wouldn't necessarily, if it's led by those people, they're probably not leading you towards Christ, right? That's probably not the direction that they are leading you. Um, and so, you know, I think about that. So, any quick thoughts, Brooke, just on the ayahuasca? Because I want to talk more about the whole, I'm 5 weeks in, I'm a little discouraged. I want to spend most of the time talking about that actually, but any thoughts immediately on the ayahuasca piece?
Yeah, just a quick thing. I mean, ayahuasca is, I mean, it's meant to be, if ceremonial, a hallucinogenic, pseudo spiritual experience. Okay, so that hasn't fixed anyone. So you don't go do an ayahuasca ceremony and then come back and go, okay, I'm not depressed anymore or sad, or right, it's not physically changing the body or teaching it new ways to exist in a healthy way. So it's an experience, and frankly, it's kind of like what you mentioned before. You can go on a 3-day retreat and feel really good about it. It's also pretty dangerous, and what has shifted into just from like a drug treatment, it's just become the new fad thing, but marketed, if you will, in spiritualism, and so that's what it does. But yeah, it's not a long-term lasting, healing effect of, and it's going to be nothing that would compare to what you would do in the continued work of Reboot.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good advice for Derek. And I would also just say, with that in general, and we're going to be closing out here. I think in general, I am seeing that trend in wellness marketing. That wellness marketing is getting more and more on the. It seems more and more to me that they're promising that which only God can provide, and I think that's an interesting thing. This idea that you will find peace, you will find all this joy, all this happiness, all this eureka moments, really only comes through that to believe that I'll find comfort, peace, patience, and joy, from something other than an authentic relationship with Christ. I don't believe is true. I don't believe that's true. And I think that a lot of people I meet with, they want the results, and here it comes, you ready? They want the results and the benefits of a relationship with Christ without actually having a relationship with Christ.
Absolutely.
We've been talking a lot as a Reboot team, this idea that who is this God acting like a king, right? And this idea of that God is, it's cool if God wants to be a therapeutic God that helps me, if God wants to be a rescuing God, if God wants to be a saving and a forgiving God. But God, don't start acting like a king. Don't treat me like a subject where I have to do the whole part of the relationship, the surrendering part.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we see this so many times, is we want the saving without the lordship. We want the healing without the healer.
Mm-hmm.
And insanity is when we do less of something and expect the same results. Or I would also say it's when we want the same results with a substitute thing, with a lesser thing. And I love wellness. I love retreats. I love Reboot. I love Mercy. I love Adam's books. I love all these things. But these can never become a substitute for the real thing.
That's right.
They will let you down. We will let you down. And I don't want to ever think that I'm promising to deliver the results that only God will be able to deliver in your life. The path towards stability, to break free of mountaintop and valley moments, is to find content in all things. As Philippians 4 says, that he's found in Christ the secret to being content, the secret. And so it's no longer a secret, because now I've told you, right? Paul has told you, I've told you as well. And so you can discover those real results. I've seen it, Brooke has seen it, Adam has seen it. And so if you find yourself hopping from thing to thing, it could be because maybe you're not truly investing in the right thing or in the main thing, right? Maybe you're doing a lot of things, but not the main thing. And that's not meant to condemn, it's meant to encourage. Speed dating various healing options probably won't work, because healing takes time. So, Derek, when it comes to your 5-week commitment, man, I hope you stuck with the full 12-week course. I'm too late, unfortunately, in addressing your question because it was in between seasons. but I do hope that you did finish the entire course. And if not, I hope you'll give it another shot, because maybe it just wasn't the right time yet. I hope you'll come back and join us. And that goes for everybody listening. I hope you'll sign up for our courses, our programs. I hope you'll sign up for the work, the right things that it takes to be able to heal. You're so awesome to be listening to this podcast and investing in yourself. You're already doing so many great things. If you have questions you'd like us to address in the show, send them over to us Facebook or Twitter at Reboot Recovery, or email them at info@rebootrecovery. Adam, Brooke, thank you guys so much for today's episode of the Reboot Recovery Show, where we're overcoming trauma. We're moving forward. What are we doing? We're moving forward. We're overcoming trauma, something, and embracing a brighter future. We're doing all those things, and we're doing them for the right reasons. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.